Ever since I became a Christian, I have thought that the best, perhaps the only service I could do for my unbelieving neighbours was to explain and defend the belief that has been common to nearly all Christians at all times. So far as I can judge, the book, however faulty in other respects, did at least succeed in presenting an agreed or common or central or mere Christianity. In that way, it may possibly be of some help in silencing the view that if we omit the disputed points, we shall have left only a vague and bloodless highest common factor. The highest common factor turns out to be something not only positive, but pungent, divided from all non-Christian beliefs by a chasm to which the worst divisions inside Christendom are not really comparable at all. I hope no reader will suppose that mere Christianity is here put forward as an alternative to the creeds of the existing communions. It is more like a hall, out of which doors open into several rooms. If I can bring anyone into that hall, I shall have done what I attempted, but it is in the rooms, not in the hall, that there are fires and chairs and meals. The hall is a place to wait in, a place from which to try the various doors, not a place to live in. But you must regard it as waiting, not as camping. You must keep on praying for light, and of course, even in the hall, you must begin trying to obey the rules which are common to the whole house. And above all, you must be asking which door is the true one, not which pleases you best by its paint and paneling. In plain language, the question should never be, do I like that kind of service, but are these doctrines true? Is holiness here? Does my conscience move me towards this? Is my reluctance to knock at this door due to my pride, or my mere taste, or my personal dislike of this particular doorkeeper? When you have reached your own room, be kind to those who have chosen different doors, and to those who are still in the hall. If they are wrong, they need your prayers all the more, and if they're your enemies, then you are under orders to pray for them. That is one of the rules common to the whole house.
Just before this evening's speaker comes to speak, I'm just going to read his passage for us. So if you've got a Bible, would you turn it on? Or if you've gone old school like me, we're turning to John 17 and it's page 815 in my Bible. We're going to start at verse 20. My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one, I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. Father, I want those you have given me to be with me where I am, and to see my glory, the glory you have given me because you loved me before the creation of the world. Righteous Father, though the world does not know you, I know you, and they know that you have sent me. I have made you known to them and will continue to make you known, in order that the love you have for me may be in them, and that I myself may be in them.
We get a chance to reimagine our country every 3, 4, 5 generations. And I want to say to you tonight, I believe from the bottom of my heart that that is what we are called to now. And it will happen one way or another. There will be a new looking Britain in 10, 15, 20 years for our children and grandchildren, 30 years. But what it looks like depends on lots of things. But you know what God's plan is for what it looks like? And how it is shaped? It is for you. It is for God's people in this land. And that is why our discipleship at the moment is so It's always critical, but it's particularly critical because we are at such a turning point. Of course we'll have a new Britain. Of course we will. But do we want one that's based on materialism, suspicion, fear, inward looking, terrified of the world around it? Or do we want one that reaches out, encourage as witnesses to the gospel of Jesus Christ, that handles diversity with beauty and love, that speaks of the kingdom of God? And do you know what God's plan is for delivering that? Not sure this is the good news or the bad news. It's you and me. Not me any more than you, I can promise you that. It's you and me. It's every Christian in this land. It's whether as a church, as God's people in this land, we can say we are going to rise up as the united people of God and live in a way that says to people who God is. And I want to pick, therefore, relatively rapidly, I hope. Well, you hope. 7. Detailed, lengthy exegeses of complicated and... No. 7 things about unity and about our discipleship. I want to start with one thing. We reveal God truly to the world only when we reflect the reality of the one God. And that means we've got to be united. People have no other way. God doesn't have a plan B. If you and I don't do it, it isn't done in this generation. It won't happen. There's no plan B where he says, okay, that hasn't worked, I'll try this. He says it's the church. And we only reveal truly who God is if we reflect the reality of God in every action we make, every word we breathe is to be a reflection of Jesus. Verse 21 of the passage that was just read from John 17. We are still living so much in the church as though persuasion without action is what matters. As though persuasion without action is what matters. And nowadays in our society, that is no longer the case. There is a cultural suspicion of authority and inherited power happily, which expects the church to look like it's been redeemed, to reflect the reality of God. And when we do that, people come to Christ, and we're seeing that all over the place. Look at someone like Jean Vanier, who founded the L'Arche communities for people with learning disabilities. And he's in his 80s now, who lives as this extraordinary image of Christ, who Christian communities around the world, where people live in community, sharing together, people with learning disabilities, people without, who live together as a community, not one doing something to the other. And when people see that, they see Jesus. So first thing, we can only reveal truly if we reflect the reality of God. We've got to look redeemed if people are going to believe in Jesus. Second, we need at the same time to welcome diversity, because God is 3 in 1, and the diversity of God is unbelievable, held perfectly together in love. There's nothing wrong with difference, being different to each other, as C.S. Lewis was writing in that video earlier. Look at the disciples, fishermen to tax collectors. I bet they had some strange conversations on the road. Look at the Anglican communion round the world. One of my favorite stories, I'm sorry for those who've heard it before, notably those with me today, who've probably heard it about 50 times, but there we are. 3 years ago, I was in Papua New Guinea visiting the church there, and I met a man who has a civil engineering degree from Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, one of the best civil engineering degrees in the world. His grandfather from the Hill tribes in Papua New Guinea was the first person in their tribe ever to see a wheel. In 2 generations, wheel to advanced civil engineering. And at the other end of the Anglican community are the people in, say, New York or San Francisco or Los Angeles or London going to church there. And we look around the breadth of the church around the world. You know, the miracle of the church is not that it exists, but that it's ever held together for 5 successive minutes. Never mind 2,000 years. Doesn't that tell you God exists? Look at us. We don't even like each other ourselves very much. Diversity is the overflow of God's creative power. And He's taken every single kind of human being and made us God's people. He hasn't done it on a production line so we all look the same, but with extravagant and incredible imagination. So we're all different. It reflects a God who is revealed to be 3 in 1. And everything we say about God is therefore to some degree inadequate, because all our language is inadequate. But what we can do as God's people is enjoy and relish the diversity and difference that we have, not try and get us all to look the same. It's an extraordinary thing. Celebrate and praise God for the differences He's made, the differences which disrupt and challenge us, that make us uncomfortable and force us back to think again. First, we only reveal truly if we reveal the reality of God, the unity of God. We welcome diversity. Thirdly, be holy because God is holy. And in God we see the outpouring of grace and love which overwhelms and defeats darkness and sin. And that won't happen without unity. Let's be clear. Verse 21 again. The consequences of disunity mean that disunity is sin. We cannot be holy if we're not united, or at least not holy, if you'll excuse the pun. We need unity for it to happen. Unity does 2 things with holiness. It enables us to progress in holiness. When we get into our own little denominational groups, our own little churches, Anglican, whatever, and we circle the wagons and make ourselves comfortable, then we don't even hear any challenges. When we say to those who are different to us, not what can we teach you, but what have you got from which we can benefit, then we learn. About 10 years ago, at the Christian Orthodox, the Greek Orthodox Christmas, the 6th of January, Epiphany to us, 6th of January, I was in Bethlehem. And we went to the church of the Nativity, and they have a short service on Christmas, the Orthodox Christmas. It lasts roughly 24 hours. It starts with the choir singing 4 times through the entire set of psalms, all 150 of them, 4 times through. That's 600. And people come in and they go out and they have a cigarette outside and they go have dinner and they come back and you're on the second time through Psalm 89 or whatever it happens to be. And it's very crowded, and really they don't do health and safety and fire protection in a huge way, it's safe to say. There's a ton of candles, and when you're down in the crypt, there are 4 services going on. When I say one, there's actually 4 churches all worshipping at once. And every now and then they set off at random points I'm sure it's not entirely random from their point of view, in a procession. So I was standing there innocently watching one lot singing the Psalms, and suddenly there's this crash behind me, and another lot come round a corner with people in Turkish Ottoman uniform at the front crashing swords on the ground. Even Worship Central doesn't do that. And you look at this and you think, I haven't a clue what's going on. It's in Aramaic, which Jesus spoke. I don't speak a word of Aramaic. I don't know what's going on. And then we were carried down into the crypt, the actual spot where Jesus is meant to be have been born. The ceiling of the cave is lined with beautiful, beautiful carpets. It's about there. Even when you're my height, it's about there. And everyone's holding candles like this. And the pressure of people was so great that my feet were literally off the ground. So I'm standing there thinking, fire protection. And you think, and your first reaction for just the early bits of the service, the first 5 or 6 hours, is, this is bonkers. This is crackers. I am so out of my comfort zone here. And then you start listening, and you watch, and you hear, and you realize that those people have been persecuted and have been attacked and have been a minority since the 7th century. And yet they are still full of love for Christ. And when one of them is hurting in the community, the whole community rallies round. And you suddenly realize the incredible richness of the diversity of Christ's church around the world and what we have to learn. Unity, when we believe they're our brothers and sisters, when we listen and learn from them, we grow in holiness. But we stay in holiness because of unity. We stay in holiness because people speak to us about when we lose sight of holiness. Surprisingly enough, I get a little bit of criticism from time to time. I don't read it all. I don't have time, and if I did, I wouldn't survive. But I do read some, and I pray and listen, and real friends and close friends tell me things when they think I'm wrong. And one of our fellow bishops in the Church of England quite recently came and said to me I was wrong about something. He was right and I was wrong. Now, he's often criticizing me, and I was sort of slightly thinking, but as I listened to him, he spoke the words of Christ to me. When we're united, we listen, and when we listen, we're held in holiness, and the world sees who Jesus is. The easiest way to split is stop listening to each other. It's how you split. Unity requires the listening that draws us together, that treats each other as us. To use a phrase that I heard earlier today, that expands the we and contracts the them.
This is my first time at Spring Harvest and I love everything about it. The people, the food, the activities, the games.
It's really nice to be able to bring God into what we're doing on holiday and enjoying together as a family.
The thing that always sticks out to me is how amazing the atmosphere is.
We are Spring Harvest!
This is the only holiday I can just tell the girls, come back whenever you like.
We get 20,000 Christians come together in one place to encounter God powerfully, to gain a confidence in the gospel, and then to be sent out in the power of the Spirit to make a difference in our local communities.
It's a gathering of Christians from across denominations, and we are here to worship the same God.
It gives me a clue into what heaven's going to be like.
The speakers every year come from a variety of backgrounds, and they really provoke and they challenge and they draw us closer to God.
Each afternoon we have a really dynamic seminar programme where there's something for everyone.
We start with half an hour of all-age worship.
There's drama and there's arts and there's dance.
The children's ministry here is fantastic.
My daughter's 5, she goes off to some kids stuff, and then I go off to some adult stuff, and she tells me that her and her friends have prayed for somebody and that they've learnt something new, and she asks me questions.
It's really great just being with a bunch of other young people.
You can guarantee you're going to make some friends.
2018, we're really excited at Spring Harvest to be coming back to Minehead and Skegness. We're also really excited to be going to Harrogate for the first time. Get together to encounter God, to be inspired with confidence, and then to go home and transform our communities in the name of Jesus.